Welcome to this documentary on the Hells Angels, a club that's been both feared and admired for decades. From their humble beginnings in the late 1940s to becoming one of the most infamous motorcycle clubs in the world, this is the full story. We'll take you through their origins, the rise of their global influence, the wars they've fought, and the criminal activities that have often kept them in the headlines. Everything is laid out from the very start, right up to the present day. So, what makes the Hells Angels tick, and why does their legend still capture our attention? Let's find out. It all began in 1948, when a group of World War II veterans, looking for something more than the everyday grind, came together in Fontana, California. These weren't your average guys. They were tough, battle-hardened, and ready to live life on their own terms. With their military background, they weren't looking to settle into the typical suburban lifestyle that most of their peers were falling into. They wanted freedom, excitement, and a bit of rebellion. That's when the Hells Angels were born. At first, the name was just a way to give their group a bit of edge. It was inspired by a World War II bomber squadron called the Hells Angels, and it was meant to represent toughness, courage, and an unwillingness to follow the rules. But they weren't just out there to act tough. They wanted a place where they could be themselves without being judged. They wanted a club that stood for something different. Initially, the club wasn't some massive, world-renowned name. It was small, just a handful of members hanging out, sharing their love of motorcycles, and enjoying the freedom of the open road. They were just a bunch of guys who loved bikes, but it quickly became more than that. The sense of brotherhood they had was unlike anything else, and before long, they started recruiting other like-minded individuals. By the early 1950s, the Hells Angels had already built a reputation. But it wasn't all about the wild rides and custom motorcycles. They were still a relatively tight-knit crew, only a few chapters scattered around California. They weren't looking to cause trouble, at least not on the scale they would later be known for. What started as a small group of vets soon expanded to more chapters, spreading through California and eventually across the United States. But here's the thing. It wasn't just the love of motorcycles that kept them together. There was something deeper, something that made them stick out in a world that seemed to be increasingly obsessed with conformity. They weren't just rebelling against the mainstream, they were creating their own world, one where they called the shots, and the rules were theirs to break. By the time the 1960s rolled around, the Hells Angels had truly started to make a name for themselves. They were no longer just a local group of bikers. They were a global symbol of defiance, freedom, and living life on their own terms. And with that fame, their image grew bigger and bolder. They weren't just about riding anymore. The counterculture movement of the 1960s, with its focus on rejecting authority, rebellion, and alternative lifestyles, found a kindred spirit in the Hells Angels. They became linked to the larger rock and roll scene, particularly the hippie movement. Suddenly, they were rubbing shoulders with musicians, artists, and political activists, all of whom were pushing against the traditional boundaries of society. It was the perfect storm, rebellious bikers meeting free-spirited youth, and the Hells Angels were right in the thick of it. But being at the heart of the counterculture didn't mean they were all peace and love. In fact, the Hells Angels were known for their no-nonsense attitude, and when it came to dealing with others, they made it clear that they weren't the type to back down. Their biker jackets, their 1% ear patch, which signified that they were the 1% of bikers who didn't follow the law, and their tough, wild image were all part of the package. At the same time, there was something else brewing within the Hells Angels, something that would eventually overshadow their image as just a group of rebellious bikers. For now, in the late 40s and early 50s, the Hells Angels were creating the foundations of something that would eventually grow into one of the most powerful, controversial, and feared motorcycle clubs in history. They weren't just a group of guys riding motorcycles, they were crafting a legend, and no one could have predicted where that would take them. By the mid-1950s, the Hells Angels were no longer just a small group of California veterans. They had begun to expand beyond their home base in San Bernardino, and with this expansion, their image grew even bigger. They were no longer just another motorcycle club. They were becoming something much more significant. Their reputation was spreading, and what was once a few local chapters soon became a global network of chapters. The Hells Angels weren't interested in blending into society. Instead, they were making their own rules, carving out a world where their version of freedom was the only thing that mattered. But it wasn't just about geographical expansion. The Hells Angels had a code of conduct that helped them stay united despite the growing number of chapters. As new chapters popped up in places like Canada and Europe, the club established a strict set of rules to maintain the integrity of their brand. At the heart of it was loyalty to the club, which meant everything. This sense of brotherhood was part of what made the Hells Angels stand out. By the early 1960s, the Hells Angels were spreading like wildfire. As their presence grew, so did their notoriety. The club's influence was undeniable. Each new chapter added to their mystique and their power. But with that power came attention, and not all of it was positive. With their rebellious nature and disregard for the rules, the Hells Angels started to make headlines for all the wrong reasons. While they still had strong ties to the counterculture, their interactions with the police became less about fighting the system and more about avoiding it. They were accused of being involved in organized crime, drugs, and violence. But the Hells Angels weren't intimidated. They weren't a typical gang, and they weren't about to play by anyone's rules. In the mid-60s, the Hells Angels reached the peak of their cultural relevance, coinciding with the Summer of Love and the rise of the hippie movement. Many young people admired the club for their refusal to conform to society's expectations, but this admiration was mixed with fear. After all, the Hells Angels weren't exactly known for their peaceful protests or flower power. They were known for their intimidating presence, their loyalty to each other, and their willingness to throw down if the situation called for it. One of the defining moments of the Hells Angels' rise to fame came in 1969 at the infamous Altamont Free concert. The Rolling Stones had hired the Hells Angels to serve as security, and what was supposed to be a peaceful event turned into a violent disaster. The chaos that erupted, including the stabbing of a concertgoer, cemented the Hells Angels' reputation as more than just a gang of bikers. They were a symbol of chaos, rebellion, and destruction. The media pounced on the story, and the Hells Angels became even more infamous overnight. But despite the bad press, the Hells Angels didn't just disappear. They kept growing, pushing into new territories, and expanding their influence. The group had become a global brotherhood, but not just any brotherhood. The Hells Angels were known for their strict codes, their tight-knit chapters, and their ability to adapt to whatever challenges came their way. And while they might have been vilified in the media, they had a loyalty to each other that couldn't be shaken. For them, it wasn't about what the outside world thought. It was about sticking together and living life the only way they knew how. By the end of the 60s, the Hells Angels had not only survived the ups and downs of the counterculture, but had used it to fuel their rise to a worldwide reputation. Their image was no longer just about motorcycles. It was about a way of life that was all their own, one that ignored laws, rejected norms, and embraced a sense of power and freedom that few could understand, let alone challenge. And while the Hells Angels were expanding and growing more powerful, their story was far from over. The real turning points, where their path would cross with the law, rival gangs, and their own internal struggles, were just starting to unfold. As the Hells Angels grew in size and influence, so did the trouble that followed them. No longer just a group of bikers enjoying the open road, they were now deeply intertwined with a world of crime, violence, and illegal activities that many had feared from the very start. The more power the club gained, the more it attracted attention, not all of it positive. By the 1970s, the Hells Angels were no longer just about the ride. They were legends in the underworld, involved in everything from drug trafficking to extortion. The club's name became synonymous with danger. They weren't just seen as an outlaw motorcycle gang anymore, but as a criminal organization with vast reach, operating like a network across the globe. The Hells Angels weren't just living outside the law, they were shaping it, or at least trying to. One of the most significant shifts in the club's story came when the Hells Angels started dealing with drugs, particularly methamphetamine and cocaine. These were highly profitable businesses that gave the club both wealth and power. But with that came the constant threat of law enforcement, rival gangs, and the constant internal struggle to maintain control of such a lucrative enterprise. The club's illicit businesses included everything from human trafficking to the more mundane, but still illegal activities like fraud and money laundering. The rise of the Hells Angels in the criminal world didn't go unnoticed. Their rise to power sparked conflict not only with law enforcement. One infamous clash came with the Mongols. By the 1980s, the Hells Angels and the Mongols had a bitter rivalry that often turned deadly. The conflict wasn't just about local turf. It became about pride, respect, and dominance in the world of outlaw motorcycle clubs. But criminal activity wasn't the only thing threatening to tear the Hells Angels apart. As the years went on, the club had to deal with internal issues. With the rise in members and chapters came growing rivalries within the club itself. Power struggles, disagreements over how to run things, and issues of loyalty often led to violent confrontations within their own ranks. Some chapters weren't as loyal to the central leadership, leading to conflicts that made it harder for the Hells Angels to keep their operations running smoothly. At the same time, law enforcement was catching up with them. They didn't just go after individual members, they went after the entire network, using everything from wiretaps to undercover agents. This was a major turning point for the Hells Angels. Suddenly, they were not just being watched by local cops, they were being investigated by federal agencies who were determined to put an end to their reign of criminal activity. But the Hells Angels weren't only known for their criminal actions. They had also built up an empire of legitimate businesses to help launder money and give their operations a more polished image. From motorcycle shops to bars and restaurants, the Hells Angels were using their legitimate businesses to fund their illegal activities. However, the constant battle against law enforcement, rival gangs, and internal divisions continued to take its toll. The Hells Angels of the late 80s and early 90s weren't the same group of young rebels who had started out in the 1940s. The club had become a worldwide network with criminal operations that spanned continents. And with that came the pressure, the violence, and the unending challenge of trying to stay on top. As the world moved into the 2000s, the Hells Angels' presence in the criminal world didn't fade. In fact, they remained a major player in the underworld. Their operations remained strong, even as they faced growing legal challenges and internal struggles. But there was one thing that remained constant throughout: the club's ability to adapt, to stay united, and to keep living their version of freedom, no matter the cost. What makes the Hells Angels so unique? Sure, they're known for their criminal connections and their rugged, rebellious image, but there's something much deeper that binds them together. At its core, the Hells Angels isn't just a motorcycle club, it's a brotherhood. And like any brotherhood, it's built on loyalty, respect, and a strict code that governs everything they do. The 1% patch that members wear proudly on their jackets isn't just a badge, it's a statement. It's a reminder that they represent the 1% of the world that doesn't follow the rules, the outlaws who refuse to conform to society's expectations. The patch is a symbol of freedom, of rejecting the mainstream, and it's part of what gives the club its edge. It's also what sets them apart from the countless other motorcycle clubs around the world. When you see that 1% on someone's jacket, you know exactly who they are and what they stand for. But the Hells Angels aren't just about the look. There's a whole world behind that patch, a world full of rituals, secrets, and a strong sense of brotherhood that keeps the club intact despite everything. Joining the Hells Angels isn't as simple as showing up and buying a leather jacket. It's a process. It's about proving your loyalty, earning your place, and respecting the rules of the club. First, a potential new member isn't just handed a patch. They have to go through a period known as the prospect phase. This is essentially a trial period where a person shows their dedication to the club. During this time, they perform menial tasks, help out with club events, and prove that they're willing to go the extra mile for the brothers. They aren't yet full members, but they have to earn the trust and respect of the other members. Once someone has made it through the prospect phase and has earned their place, they are finally given the coveted Hells Angels patch. But that's just the beginning. The Hells Angels have a strict hierarchy. And while every member is considered a brother, not all brothers are equal. The leadership within the club is organized, and there's a lot of respect given to those who've been in the club the longest or those who have contributed the most to its growth. At the top of the hierarchy are the presidents of each chapter, who have the final say in decisions. They're followed by vice presidents, sergeants at arms, and other officers who help run the day-to-day operations of the club. But even with all the structure, there's still an element of anarchy within the group. The Hells Angels may follow a code, but they're not about following orders blindly. Members are expected to think for themselves, and the club respects individuality as long as it doesn't conflict with the brotherhood. One of the key aspects that ties the Hells Angels together is their sense of loyalty. For many members, the club is more than just a group of guys you hang out with. It's a family. The bond between members is unbreakable. and that loyalty extends beyond just the club itself. It's a way of life that defines everything they do, from how they handle conflicts to how they deal with outsiders. But this isn't just about hanging out and riding bikes together. The Hells Angels have a ritualistic side to their club that's steeped in tradition. They have their own ways of marking milestones, handling disputes, and paying respect to their fallen brothers. For instance, when a member dies, the Hells Angels have a way of honoring them that is unique to the club. They don't just mourn the loss, they celebrate the life and the brotherhood they shared with the deceased. And it's not just about the rituals, there's a cultural element as well. The Hells Angels have created a subculture all their own, blending biker culture with a sense of rebellion and freedom that's hard to describe. They're not just interested in motorcycles, they're interested in creating a lifestyle, a world where they can be themselves without judgment. Whether it's throwing wild parties, riding together in huge packs, or simply living life in the fast lane, being a Hells Angel means being part of something that's larger than life. But here's the kicker. This world of loyalty and brotherhood doesn't come without its dark side. The sense of camaraderie among Hells Angels members is intense, but it's also protective. If someone threatens the club or its members, they will quickly find that crossing the Hells Angels isn't something they want to do. This brotherhood isn't about being nice to everyone. It's about standing your ground and protecting your own. This loyalty can turn dangerous, especially when the club's illegal activities are threatened. As the Hells Angels expanded, they attracted more attention, not just from the police, but from other groups and organizations who wanted a piece of the pie. But the Hells Angels weren't about to hand over any control. Whether it was rival gangs, law enforcement, or even within the club itself, the Hells Angels knew how to keep things under control. And that's what has kept them going all these years, this deep, unshakable bond that ties them together. So, while the outside world might see the Hells Angels as a bunch of rebels with bikes, the truth is much more layered. The Hells Angels are a brotherhood, a world built on respect, loyalty, and a lifestyle that not many can understand or replicate. And that's exactly how they like it. From the beginning, the Hells Angels had a complicated relationship with law enforcement. Their name alone was enough to spark suspicion, and as the club grew, so did the attention they received from police. Their involvement in criminal activities like drug trafficking, extortion, and violence made them prime targets for investigations. The FBI and ATF quickly took interest in their operations, seeing them as a threat to national security. The club's global network of chapters meant they were hard to track, but that didn't stop authorities from trying. Over the years, there have been countless raids, arrests, and prosecutions aimed at breaking the Hells Angels' grip on the underworld. Despite the constant legal pressure, the club remained resilient, often turning public perception in their favor by embracing their rebellious image. For many members, fighting the law was part of the lifestyle, and as long as they stuck together, they felt untouchable. The Hells Angels' rise didn't come without challenges. As their influence spread, they clashed with other outlaw motorcycle gangs. The Mongols, Outlaws, and Pagans were among their fiercest rivals, each fighting for control of territories and illegal operations. These turf wars were brutal, with violence erupting over everything from drug routes to club honor. The constant fighting led to bloodshed and tension within the biker world. Yet, the Hells Angels' tight-knit brotherhood kept them united. While rival gangs often tore each other apart, the Angels remained resolute, following their code of loyalty and showing no signs of backing down. The constant conflict only served to strengthen their position and reputation in the criminal underworld. Today, the Hells Angels remain one of the most recognizable and feared motorcycle clubs worldwide. While their criminal activities may have quieted in some regions due to law enforcement crackdowns, their reputation still looms large. They've adapted to the modern world, finding new ways to operate while holding on to their rebellious spirit. But they continue to maintain the core values of loyalty, brotherhood, and freedom. Even with the changing times, the Hells Angels still represent an alternative lifestyle, one that challenges the system and pushes back against authority. The Hells Angels are polarizing. To some, they're heroes, living outside the confines of a society that values conformity. The club's image has always been one of defiance, and they've often embraced it, whether it's riding through town in massive packs or raising hell at events. But despite their controversial reputation, the Hells Angels have made a lasting impact on both pop culture and the criminal world. Their image has been co-opted by people who want to project toughness, independence, and rebellion. traits that resonate with anyone who feels marginalized or disconnected from mainstream society. However, the legacy of the Hells Angels is complicated. The club's criminal activities, including drug dealing, violence, and racketeering, have caused untold harm. They've clashed with law enforcement, rival gangs, and even their own members over the years. The cycle of violence and conflict seems to be part of their DNA. And yet, there's no denying the sense of loyalty and brotherhood that holds them together, qualities that are rare in a world driven by self-interest. Despite their criminal activities, the Hells Angels have managed to survive and thrive for decades. They've weathered scandals, legal crackdowns, and internal conflict, and yet they remain one of the most formidable outlaw organizations in the world. In a sense, their ability to endure, to adapt to changing times while maintaining their core values, is a testament to the strength of their brotherhood. But are they heroes or villains? It depends on who you ask. For some, they represent the ultimate freedom, a life without rules or restrictions. For others, they're a reminder of what happens when a group decides to live outside the law, no matter the cost.
With a criminal record that includes over 50 violent incidents, Armand Blecher's name is synonymous with fear and brutality. As a notorious member of the Hells Angels, his reputation for violence and criminal activities made him a legend in the biker world. Stay tuned as we explore the life of one of the most infamous Hells Angels members, uncovering the shocking truths behind his reign of terror and tragic end. Early life and rise. Armand Blecher was born on November 14, 1942, in Alameda County, California, USA. His father, Edward E. Blecher, was a decorated U.S. Navy veteran who served in World War II, Korea, and Vietnam. Edward's military service deeply influenced Armand's upbringing, instilling in him values of resilience and strength. Armand's childhood was marked by significant challenges. Standing at 6 feet 8 inches tall and weighing 350 pounds, he faced relentless bullying due to his size, which had a lasting impact on his life. Determined to change his circumstances, Armand dedicated himself to weightlifting and used steroids to build his physique. This transformation from a bullied victim to a formidable force allowed him to confront his past tormentors and establish himself as a powerful figure. His reputation only grew as he became involved with the mafia and worked as a bodyguard for the legendary singer Frank Sinatra. These connections solidified his standing as a man not to be trifled with and added to his mystique. Despite his tough exterior, family was always important to Armand. The values instilled in him by his father played a crucial role in shaping his character and the path he chose. Edward E. Blecher's final resting place at Belmont Memorial Park in Fresno, California, serves as a poignant reminder of the lasting impact of family on Armand's life. Armand Blecher's story is one of resilience and transformation, deeply influenced by his early life experiences and the values his father instilled in him. Path to the Hells Angels. Armand Blecher's journey to becoming a key figure in the Hells Angels Motorcycle Club is a tale of loyalty, fearlessness, and unwavering dedication. His involvement with the club began with a deep sense of camaraderie and commitment, which quickly led him to become a respected and feared enforcer. The Hells Angels, founded in 1948, have become iconic in the world of motorcycle clubs, often symbolizing rebellion and nonconformity. Their impact on popular culture is immense, with numerous films, books, and documentaries portraying their notorious lifestyle. High-profile incidents like the stabbing death of Meredith Hunter at the Ultimate Festival have fueled their notoriety. Additionally, the Hells Angels have been involved in numerous legal battles, including trademark infringement lawsuits, further solidifying their reputation as a powerful and influential force. Armand Blecher's story is deeply intertwined with the Hells Angels' legacy, marked by his resilience, loyalty, and fearless dedication. Armand's legendary feats within the Hells Angels, such as his ability to shrug off baseball bat blows, cemented his reputation as a formidable figure. His resilience and capacity to endure physical harm without flinching earned him immense respect from his peers. This unyielding toughness, combined with his steadfast loyalty, made him an influential force within the organization. One notable incident that underscores Armand's significance within the club is his role in the investigation and trial following the murder of several members of the Level chapter. His crucial testimony during the trial helped bring the perpetrators to justice, showcasing his bravery and his unwavering commitment to the club and its members. Reign of Terror. Armand Blecher's reign of terror in 1970s, Fresno was marked by a series of violent and criminal exploits that made him one of the most feared figures in the region. His massive height and weight earned him the nickname Big Armand. Known for his aggressive demeanor, Bletcher's reputation for violence was well-deserved. He was involved in numerous assaults, often using his physical prowess to overpower his victims. One of the most notorious incidents involved an altercation at a bar called The Circle in Fresno, where he allegedly shot a man but was found to have acted in self-defense. Bletcher's criminal activities extended beyond physical violence. He was deeply involved in drug trafficking, using his connections within the Hells Angels and the Mafia to move illicit substances. His ability to instill fear allowed him to extort money and resources from those who crossed his path. The Fresno Bee newspaper reported allegations that Bletcher was a paid enforcer for local drug gangs, and the FBI sought to indict him for racketeering, although these charges were never proven. One chilling incident that stands out is his encounter with a rival gang member who dared to challenge him. Witnesses recounted how Bletcher, seemingly impervious to pain, shrugged off repeated blows from a baseball bat before retaliating with bone-crushing force. This incident showcased his ruthlessness and the fear he instilled in his victims. Bletcher's connections with the Hells Angels and his friendship with their president, Sonny Barger, provided him a cloak of protection. These affiliations, along with his ties to the staff at Easy Rider magazine, allowed him to evade justice for many years. Law enforcement struggled to bring him to justice, hindered by the fear and loyalty of his associates. Despite his criminal exploits, Bletcher remained a popular figure among the motorcycle crowd, living the biker lifestyle to its fullest. His story is a testament to the dark allure of the outlaw lifestyle and the impact of one man's reign of terror, downfall, and tragic end. Armand Bletcher had a life shrouded in controversy and violence, as he was a towering figure in 1970s Fresno, California. Rumors of his involvement in murder circulated widely, especially after a bar altercation at the Circle in Fresno, where he allegedly shot a man in self-defense. This incident only fueled speculation about his role in other violent activities. Armand's imposing size and strength were often attributed to his regular weightlifting and alleged steroid use. This combination led to bouts of roid rage, where his aggressive behavior became notorious. His connection to steroids was a significant part of his fearsome reputation, making him an even more formidable figure in the biker community. On November 25, 1975, Armand's life came to a tragic end. He was shot and killed by his cousins, the Brajkovich brothers, at their tire shop in Fresno. The brothers claimed self-defense, stating that Armand had threatened them, forcing them to act. This incident was steeped in controversy, with allegations that Armand was a paid enforcer for local drug gangs and that the FBI was investigating him for racketeering. The events surrounding his death were as dramatic as his life. The murder charges against the Brajkovich brothers highlighted the dangerous and tumultuous world Armand inhabited. His death marked the end of an era, but his legacy continued to cast a long shadow. Armand Bletcher's life left an indelible mark on the world of motorcycle clubs. His larger-than-life persona, his connections with the Hells Angels, and his violent reputation made him a legendary figure. Despite his tragic end, his story continues to intrigue and inspire those who delve into the history of biker culture.
Why did Dayne Brajkovich, the infamous and heavily tattooed sergeant-at-arms of the Hells Angels, get kicked out of his own gang? Was it a brutal power struggle or a clash over rival alliances? Stay tuned as we uncover the real story behind his dramatic expulsion and what it means for the biker world. Dayne Brajkovich's background. Dayne Brajkovich's journey with the Hells Angels began years ago, marking him as a prominent figure in the notorious motorcycle club. Joining the gang at a young age, Brajkovich quickly immersed himself in the biker lifestyle, embracing the brotherhood and the code that came with it. His commitment and fearlessness helped him climb the ranks, eventually earning him the powerful position of sergeant-at-arms, a role responsible for maintaining order and discipline within the club. Brajkovich's heavily tattooed appearance sets him apart, with ink covering much of his body, including the words Hells Angels prominently displayed on his forehead and 1% on his neck. These tattoos are not just for show. They signify his deep allegiance to the Outlaw motorcycle gang and his readiness to defend its honor at all costs. Within the Hells Angels, Brajkovich is known for his tough persona and unwavering loyalty, traits that earned him respect and fear alike. Publicly, he is recognized as a symbol of the gang's rebellious and often violent image, making headlines for his involvement in various high-profile incidents. His tattoos and notorious reputation make him an unmistakable figure in the world of outlaw bikers. The dispute. The dispute that led to Dayne Brajkovich's expulsion from the Hells Angels began with a significant clash between him and other senior members of the gang. The primary source of conflict was Brajkovich's strong disapproval of Hells Angels members socializing with rival gangs. He believed that mingling with bikies from groups like the Rebels and the Gypsy Jokers undermined the gang's unity and loyalty. The tensions came to a head when several Hells Angels members attended a birthday party at the Rebels clubhouse and were later seen at the Goldfield Sand Drags event with the Gypsy Jokers. These incidents infuriated Brajkovich, who viewed them as betrayals of the gang's core principles. He felt that such actions weakened the Hells Angels' stance against their rivals and jeopardized their reputation. The confrontation escalated during a heated exchange between Brajkovich and other senior members, where he voiced his concerns vehemently. The disagreement quickly turned physical, with reports suggesting that Brajkovich was punched before being forcibly ejected from the club. This violent altercation marked the end of his long-standing membership in the Hells Angels and set the stage for potential future conflicts within the biker community. The fallout. The fallout from Dayne Brajkovich's expulsion from the Hells Angels was both swift and significant. The altercation that led to his ejection was reportedly violent, with Brajkovich being physically confronted by other senior members. Rumors suggest that the clash was intense, with Brajkovich being punched and forcibly removed from the gang's ranks, marking a dramatic end to his tenure. The immediate reactions within the gang were mixed. Some members supported the decision, believing that Brajkovich's rigid stance against mingling with rival gangs was causing internal strife. Others viewed his expulsion as a betrayal of a loyal and long-standing member. This division highlighted the growing tensions and differing perspectives within the Hells Angels. In the wider community, the news of Brajkovich's expulsion made headlines, drawing attention to the internal dynamics of one of the most infamous biker gangs. The implications for the Hells Angels were profound, as the removal of such a high-profile figure could signal vulnerability and disunity. Rival gangs, aware of the situation, might see this as an opportunity to challenge the Hells Angels' dominance, potentially leading to increased tensions and conflicts in the biker world. Brajkovich's expulsion could thus have lasting impacts on the power dynamics and future interactions between these notorious groups. Historical context. Dayne Brajkovich's expulsion from the Hells Angels echoes previous notable gang defections, such as the departure of Troy Mercanti from the Coffin Cheaters to the Finks and Kevin, Mad Mick Woodhouse from the Darrows to the Coffin Cheaters. Both incidents sparked violent turf wars, with Mercanti's defection leading to an all-out war and Woodhouse's causing a year-long battle that left blood on the streets. These historical precedents suggest a high potential for violence and turf wars following Brajkovich's removal. When key figures switch allegiances or are expelled, it often destabilizes the delicate balance of power among rival gangs. In Australia, gang violence has a storied history, marked by brutal conflicts over territory and dominance. Brajkovich's expulsion could reignite these tensions, potentially leading to new confrontations as gangs vie for control and reassert their dominance in a volatile landscape. Legal troubles and public perception. Dayne Brajkovich's legal troubles have been numerous and highly publicized. His violent bashing of Rebels gang chief Nick Martin at a bar in 2020, just weeks before Martin's assassination, brought significant media attention. Brajkovich was fined $800 for the attack. In March 2021, his home in Ascot was targeted in a drive-by shooting, where up to 5 shots were fired. These incidents highlighted his prominent role in ongoing gang conflicts. The introduction of new bikie laws in Western Australia specifically targeted individuals like Brajkovich. These laws banned the public display of gang insignia, including tattoos that signify gang affiliation. Brajkovich, with Hells Angels tattooed on his forehead and 1% or on his neck, became a prime example of the law's focus. Authorities suggested he might need to cover his tattoos with makeup or band-aids to comply. Public and law enforcement responses have been critical of Brajkovich. DOTA Police Commissioner Chris Dawson called his behavior defiant and emphasized that flaunting gang symbols was an act of defiance against the law. The public perception of Brajkovich is largely negative, viewing him as a symbol of outlaw biker culture and its associated violence. These legal pressures and societal views continue to shape the narrative around Brajkovich and his activities. What's next for Brajkovich? What's next for Dayne Brajkovich is a question that stirs much speculation. Given his history and notoriety, it's unlikely that he will remain unaffiliated for long. Brajkovich's options include joining another motorcycle gang and leveraging his reputation and experience. His extensive tattoos and public persona indicate a deep commitment to the outlaw biker lifestyle, making a complete exit from the scene improbable. The likelihood of other gangs accepting him is significant, primarily due to his ability to bring in money and his established reputation. The rule among outlaw motorcycle clubs is straightforward. If you can contribute financially and bolster the gang's influence, you're an asset. However, his previous ties to the Hells Angels might complicate his acceptance. Any gang that takes him in would have to consider the potential backlash from the Hells Angels, potentially reigniting old rivalries. The introduction of Brajkovich into another gang could lead to further conflicts. Given his history of violent altercations and the dramatic nature of his expulsion, other gangs might see his addition as both an asset and a risk. The biker world is notoriously volatile, with alliances and enmities shifting rapidly. Brajkovich's next move could easily spark new turf wars or escalate existing tensions.
Frank Hannebeth runs the local nightlife sector and extends into upper-class society. In the summer of 2017, the best-known Hells Angel married outside Hanover. The festival is folk-like. Former boxer Frank Hannebeth is the most famous Hells Angel. With their crew, they own bars, brothels, and sports studios. They also have the best civil society contracts. Hannebeth can cook and rob. Frank Hannebeth's accomplishments are rare in business. Frank Hannebeth has been affected by recent rocker scene changes. Frank Hannebeth leads the club. He's Germany's most famous member. Hannebeth links the bourgeois and the underground. Gotz von Fromberg celebrates the birthday of his client, Gerhard Schroeder's best man. Hells Angels experienced Hannebeth's beer, cigarettes, and Harley sound. Nightlife mayor. Tens of thousands attend Beck's and the Bild newspaper-sponsored Red Light. Frank Hannebeth handles his gang's tension, and how long can he freely roam Germany? Will they compromise or fiercely protect their status as Europe's most powerful Hells Angel? Bandidos and Hells Angels fight as brothers and brutally. Two outlaw motorcycle organizations are waging a violent war for territory. Each side will do whatever to win. It's a titanic battle that has wreaked havoc and won't stop. In 2007, the Hells Angels and Bandidos started fighting. Investigators targeted Hannebeth. Hells Angels recruited many young males to quickly strengthen themselves. Hannebeth, one of their followers, would suffer. Stefan R., a killer, testified as a critical witness to decrease his human trafficking sentence. Hells Angels tortured and killed the Turkish Tekin B. Does a car repair shop hit? Despite lacking evidence, the crucial witness in this story receives a reduced sentence. After that, the person was unreliable. Police warned of the situation before raiding Hannebeth's estate. GSG-9 shoots their dog. The GSG-9 wasn't needed there. Hanover detectives know the subject will accept responsibility for any issues. The person has stated that they will answer the bell and face the consequences. Rocker bosses may worry about their dog's health, gang power conflicts, law enforcement surveillance, and disloyalty. Their leader's life is at risk. How far will a leader go for money, power, and status? What risks will Hannebeth take to survive? He reportedly moved to Mallorca, Spain in 2013. The Hells Angels chief reportedly intended to leave Hanover's gloomy and dreary streets and start over professionally. Hannebeth's relocation may have been motivated by money, power, and glory, or by the pleasant weather, palms, and sand beaches. His presence on the Spanish island may spark international strife and violence in Europe's party capital. The person thought Mallorca's lovely beaches would be a good place to expand their reign of terror without police oversight. Their plans don't work out. Soon after arrival, Spanish police arrest him at a friend's finca. Drug trafficking, money laundering, and prostitution are the charges. They're arrested. He leaves the Angels powerless. After 3 years, Spanish police cannot charge Hannibeth in September 2016. Since their 52nd birthday is 2 years after their 50th, they can visit Hanover for a week. He was in a Spanish high-security jail. Returning home is good. They expect a good day on their birthday and want to go all out. They praise the throttle. Hell's Angels friends and business partners welcome Frank Hannibeth's activities. Returning to their roots, a teacher's son started as a pub landlord over 30 years ago and got to the top of the European Hell's Angels through boxing. Biker politics continue. Will the boss hold firm after their vacation? Will Hannibeth's return to Hanover lead to a new Hell's Angels period, or will his foes eventually defeat him? Hell's Angels have traditionally punished people who violate their trust or break the rules. This brotherhood's extent is unknown. A former East Berlin thug learns that rocker brotherhoods may be unbrotherly when wealth and power trump honor and code. Another Hell's Angels life may not matter. He sees Hell's Angels as free-spirited rebels who can shock polite society. In 2008, one of the most powerful Hell's Angels, Holger Boston, or Hako, was president. The club expelled the person for alleged embezzlement. Boston wanted to return, but Andre Sommer prevented it, owing to Hako's theft charges. Why was he fired? A Sig Sauer-wielding killer was unreported on June 10, 2012. 9mm is approaching Zingsterstrasse in Hohenschoppenhauer, East Berlin. The rocker president parked their motorcycle here. Ukrainian Oleg Serkasov, 36, was shot. The first shot hit his pericardium and missed his heart by half an inch. His chest was shot again. Pierce, a 400-pound man, did not reach to summer shock. He was conscious and his many major blood arteries were intact. The second life-threatening shot strikes the liver and belly, missing the abdominal aorta by 2 centimeters. The last shot probably hits the seriously damaged man in the 12th thoracic vertebrae. 1 centimeter further would have destroyed the spinal cord. Murder paralyzed. Holger, Boston, and Russian Michael were responsible. Boston confessed. Supposedly, Summers should be taught a lesson. Holger Boston received a 7.5-year sentence for attempted murder. After the violent attack, Andre Summers' notoriety soared. What happens when Hell's Angels disputes become club-wide troop movements? How far veterans will go to maintain their position against newbies, and how many violent rockers are needed for a 10-year coup are unknown. The Frankfurt Hell's Angels have many migrants. Turk Egon Machuk was one of the earliest foreigners. Schnitzel Walter, a butcher, leads the Frankfurt Angels. He allegedly became a fortune through street smarts and subterranean cruelty. 2014, Aegon data. Muchuk has attracted dissatisfied rockers. He wants his own Angels branch. Schnitzel Walter initially supported Mucho's growth. He later changed his mind and denied McCuck the lucrative brothel and club bouncer employment. Mucho storms 40 guys fight at Frankfurt's Katana Club. The police found that Schnitzel's men shot Machuk, who survived through fortunate. Angels shot at Angels, a rare but harmless event. Every huge family has fights that end with someone leaving. A dispute occurred. His or her strength comes from immigrants. The Ottomans and Guerrilla Nation have joined them. They introduced their allies at an Offenbach boxing match. People recognize nice people as good friends. They know everyone now. These dudes are his Angels Cops Call Life Insurance. No changes. He advises organizing these units or groups to enhance troop numbers and street presence without having to treat them as official members with rigorous restrictions and support in disagreements. Injury detention and other related issues are also being discussed among Hell's Angels delegates at the 2016 World Run. Hell's Angels from all over the world are anticipated to congregate in Warsaw for the occasion. The rockers want to talk about how they can stay in the club. It will be specifically spoken about Egan Machuk, who is reported to have disobeyed the regulations yet again. Machuk, on the other hand, has been pardoned once more. Following his pardon, he greets police officers who are familiar with the incident. Although this is against the rockers' rules, there is a rule against communicating with the police. There are no issues. The rule appears to be quite distinct. They need to improve their reading skills. It appears that the things that make the old guys in Hell's Angels group rage will not be punished. The guy disregards Hell's Angels rules that have been in place for decades. Muchuk attends the funeral of the new gang Guerrilla Nation in Berlin. Muchuk, a Hell Angel from the Frankfurt region, is unconcerned about his organization competing directly with the Berlin Hell's Angels, even though it has resulted in conflicts. Muchuk is barred from finding allies in Berlin who may jeopardize the Berlin Angels' interests. Nonetheless, Muchuk leads the funeral procession in Berlin. The rocker boss spends 20 minutes at the cemetery, enough time to reflect on his mortality. Autumn Os, 45, expressed a desire not to die and hoped to avoid being shot. Autumn Os, on the other hand, was cruelly shot 17 times at close range.
In the annals of outlaw history, few names command as much respect, fear, and fascination as that of Ralph Hubert Sonny Barger Jr. Known as the epitome of rebellion, power, and unyielding loyalty, Sonny Barger's story is a roller coaster of triumphs, tragedies, and the raw essence of the outlaw spirit. But how did Barger navigate the treacherous world of motorcycle gangs and rise to prominence within the Hells Angels? What were the pivotal moments that shaped Barger's reputation as a formidable force within the outlaw community? And, importantly, what legacy did Sonny Barger leave behind, and how has his influence shaped the world of motorcycle clubs to this day? Well, join us as we unravel the enigma of the most brutal Hells Angel in history, Sonny Barger. The legend of Sonny Barger, from rebel youth to Hells Angels icon. From founding the notorious Hells Angels Oakland chapter to engaging in drug deals, kidnapping, and even murder, Sonny Barger's life is a gripping tale of rebellion and notoriety. But to understand the man behind the legend, we must first explore his humble beginnings. Early life. Ralph Hubert Barger Jr. was born on October 8, 1938, in Modesto, California, amidst a backdrop of post-war turmoil. But life in Oakland, where he grew up, was far from peaceful. With industries crumbling and unemployment on the rise, the city faced its own battles, and young Barger found himself drawn into the fray. Even in his youth, Barger was a force to be reckoned with. School was no match for his rebellious spirit as suspensions piled up and confrontations with teachers and classmates became commonplace. Formal education failed to captivate Barger, prompting him to abandon it altogether. While others succumbed to the allure of drugs, Barger sought a different path. He found solace in the simplicity of honest work, laboring in a local grocery store amidst the urban tumult. But within him burned a restless desire for something more, something extraordinary. At just 16, he made a bold decision to enlist in the United States Army, seeking the discipline, camaraderie, and expertise in weaponry that military life promised. However, fate had other plans. His military dreams were dashed when a fake birth certificate was uncovered, leaving him to navigate an uncertain future upon his return to Oakland. Back home, Barger became a nomad, drifting between menial jobs and seeking refuge within the confines of his family's home. Little did he know this was only the beginning of his extraordinary journey. Destiny had marked him for greatness, destined for adventures in the darkest corners of the world. It was during these tumultuous times that Barger's path intersected with the infamous Hells Angels Motorcycle Club. Drawn to the camaraderie and sense of belonging that the club offered, he made the fateful decision to join their ranks. Little did he realize, this decision would shape the course of his life in ways he could never have imagined. Hells Angels. In 1948, the Hells Angels Motorcycle Club roared to life in Fontana, California, embodying a spirit of rebellion and freedom on two wheels. However, it wasn't until the late 1950s that a pivotal figure, Sonny Barger, would enter the scene, forever altering the course of the club's history. Rising through the ranks with unparalleled speed, Barger soon found himself at the helm of the Hells Angels Oakland branch, a position from which he would leave an indelible mark on the motorcycle club world. Sonny Barger's ascent to leadership within the Hells Angels was fueled by a potent combination of charisma, assertiveness, and exceptional leadership skills. Renowned for his fearless riding and rugged demeanor, Barger commanded respect and loyalty from his fellow members, propelling him to the forefront of the club's leadership. But Barger's influence extended far beyond the confines of the motorcycle club. He played a central role in several high-profile events that thrust the Hells Angels into the public eye. Notably, the infamous Hollister riot of 1947 and the Altamont Free Concert of 1969 became defining moments in the club's legacy, solidifying its reputation as a symbol of rebellion and lawlessness. Despite the controversy surrounding these incidents, Barger remained undeterred in his mission to expand the Hells Angels' influence. He spearheaded the establishment of new chapters across the United States, fueling the club's growth and cementing its status as a national force to be reckoned with. However, Barger's life was not without its share of turmoil and conflict. His life was marked by drama, violence, and frequent appearances in courtrooms, which he humorously referred to as his gangster era. Despite the challenges and legal battles, Barger remained steadfast in his commitment to the Hells Angels and the brotherhood they represented. The gang era. Now, let's delve into a tumultuous period in the history of the Hells Angels, a time marked by challenges, controversies, and a struggle for survival in the face of mounting opposition. It was a moment when various clubs and individuals attempted to undermine the Hells Angels' reputation, stirring up hatred among different communities. The Black and Latino populations detested them, while white people were scared, hippies avoided them, and even rednecks despised them. According to Sonny Barger, the Hells Angels became increasingly isolated during this turbulent time. One pivotal event that rocked Sonny Barger's world occurred in April 1970, when he was arrested on narcotics charges. The arrest came after a film studio property manager and former Mr. America 1967, Donald Howarth, was detained near Barger's home. Horwath was discovered with a substantial amount of illegal narcotics, including cocaine and heroin, valued at $350,000. Barger, then the president of the Oakland chapter, resigned from his position in the aftermath of the arrest. However, Barger's hiatus from leadership was short-lived. His successor, John "Johnny Angel" Palomar, was soon sentenced to 10 years in prison for shooting a bartender. This turn of events prompted Barger's swift return to his position as president. Despite the narcotics accusations against Barger, the charges were eventually dropped. In contrast, Howarth was convicted and sentenced to 5 years to life in prison. Barger, on the other hand, received a 90-day jail sentence for leaving a court session. But this was just the beginning of a series of events that would further tarnish the Hells Angels' reputation. In another incident, Barger found himself involved in a high-speed chase through Redwood Regional Park, alongside 4 other club members: Russell Bayea, Bobby "Dirt" England, Oakland, Gary Popkin, and Bert Stephenson. The chase ensued after park guards accused the occupants of 2 vehicles, a Pontiac and a Cadillac, of poaching. The pursuit ended when the Pontiac crashed into a tree after park rangers shot out its tires. Amidst the chaos, it was discovered that 3 club prospects, William Hood, Russell Huddleston, and Danny Jarman, had been chained, gagged, and savagely assaulted in the trunk of the Pontiac. Despite Hood and Jarman's injuries, all 3 suspects were apprehended. During the pursuit, various objects, including firearms, surgical gloves, and a belt engraved with Barger's name and tenure as president of the Hells Angels Oakland chapter, were discarded from the fleeing Cadillac. Barger and his associates were subsequently charged with attempted murder, kidnapping, and assault with a deadly weapon. Despite the club's attorneys' assertions of insufficient evidence and illegal search tactics by arresting authorities, Barger and his cohorts ultimately pleaded guilty to the lesser charge of wrongful imprisonment. But the ordeal didn't end there for Barger. Alongside fellow Hells Angels members, Sergey Walton, Donald Dayne, Whitey Smith, and Oakland Gary Popkin, he faced another serious charge: the murder of drug dealer Servio Winston Agiro. Agiro had flown to Oakland with a cargo of cocaine, and his murder was allegedly motivated by a disagreement over an $80,000 cocaine deal. A prosecution witness, Richard Ivaldi, claimed to have witnessed Barger killing Agiro while he slept at an acquaintance's home. Ivaldi further alleged that Barger instructed the others to set fire to the house. However, after a 7-week trial, Barger and his 3 co-defendants were acquitted on December 29, 1972. Questions arose regarding Ivaldi's credibility, and Barger's girlfriend Sharon Grulka provided an alibi, stating she was with him at the time of the murder. Barger's lead counsel, James Crew, asserted that Ivaldi was involved in the plot and attempted to shift blame to the Hells Angels due to fear of reprisal from the Texas Mafia. However, the aftermath of these events was marred by a string of suspicious murders in the local area. The day after Aguero's murder, 3 men, including drug traffickers, were discovered shot to death at a residence near San Leandro. Additionally, the body of a woman named Karen S. Long was found in the trunk of a car in Oakland, and Long's ex-husband was later found dead in an apparent suicide. These incidents further fueled speculation and added to the chaos surrounding the Hells Angels. In March 1973, Sonny Barger faced sentencing for a separate set of charges. He was found guilty of possessing narcotics for sale and possessing a handgun as a convicted felon. Barger was sentenced to 10 years in prison, forcing him to relinquish his leadership of the Oakland chapter for the first time since its inception. Despite being incarcerated, Sonny Barger continued to wield influence over the Hells Angels, even orchestrating a motorbike run near Bass Lake before his arrest. Prior to his imprisonment, he appointed Fillmore Cross as his international successor, only for Cross to be incarcerated in 1975 for possession of amphetamines. But Barger was not forgotten. Despite these setbacks, Barger received immense support from his fans, with a biker magazine launching a Free Sonny Barger campaign, selling merchandise to fund his legal battles. Barger capitalized on media opportunities, including interviews with prominent figures like Geraldo Rivera, portraying himself as a model prisoner with hopes for eventual release. Remarkably, during his time behind bars at Folsom State Prison, Barger studied sociology while awaiting legal proceedings, a side of him that is often overlooked in the media's portrayal of him as a hard-end outlaw. In April 1977, he achieved a significant legal victory when the California Supreme Court granted him a retrial on a marijuana possession conviction, leading to his release after serving 4.5 years of his sentence. Upon his parole, Barger wasted no time making significant moves within the Hells Angels. In December 1977, he formed the first Hells Angels chapter in Canada, expanding the club's reach internationally. Yves Le Boss Buteau was granted the prestigious honor of wearing a Hells Angels jacket labeled International, a symbolic gesture of the club's global expansion. However, legal troubles continued to plague Barger following his release. In March 1978, he faced arrest on a parole violation charge for gun possession. Police discovered firearms at his Oakland residence, but Barger's wife, Sharon, testified that the weapons belonged to her, resulting in the dismissal of the case against him. Despite these legal entanglements, the Hells Angels expanded their influence beyond California, establishing chapters across several states. The rivalry between the Hells Angels and the Outlaws escalated in November 1978, sparked by conflicts over territorial disputes and control of the methamphetamine trade. The FBI asserted that both gangs vied for dominance in this illicit industry, with authorities charging the Hells Angels with monopolizing methamphetamine manufacturing in the United States. Barger acknowledged some members' involvement in drug-related activities, but likened it to law enforcement personnel engaging in similar behavior. In an attempt to quell tensions, Barger and other top Hells Angels officials initiated peace talks with the Outlaws. However, the purported peace conference turned out to be a ruse intended to eliminate the leadership of their rivals. The betrayal by one of their own Canite, who disclosed the plot to the Outlaws, resulted in his expulsion from the Hells Angels. During the murder trial of a Hells Angels member accused of killing an Outlaws member in October 1982, Barger and a group of Hells Angels sought to intimidate jurors and assert their presence. Despite attempts by the Angels to intimidate jurors, the accused was acquitted, prompting Barger to organize a celebratory gathering in his honor. Even as he battled throat cancer in 1983, Barger remained an influential figure within the Hells Angels. Delegating some responsibilities to his second-in-command, O'Farrell, Barger's presence continued to loom large over the organization. In June 2022, Sonny Barger passed away, leaving behind a legacy marred by legal troubles, but defined by his unwavering dedication to the Hells Angels. Despite the controversies and criminal accusations, his impact on the club's history remains undeniable, cementing his place as one of the most iconic figures in biker culture. Sansitur personal life. Now let's take a peek into Barger's personal life, particularly his marriage to Zorana Barger. Zorana, a woman whose life intertwined with that of a motorcycle legend, Sonny Barger, was more than just a wife. Born in Los Angeles, her journey was as adventurous as a ride along the Pacific Coast Highway. With creativity and independence as her companions, Zorana carved out a unique path for herself over 65 years, She wasn't just Sonny's wife, she was an executive producer, a writer, and above all, a motorcycle enthusiast. Their story began in the early 2000s, a time marked by the rumble of bikes and the dawn of a new millennium. Despite being Sonny's fourth wife, Zorana brought a fresh energy into his life. Their love story culminated in a summer wedding in June 2005, surrounded by the roar of engines and the spirit of the open road. But who is Zorana beyond her association with Sonny? Despite her public persona, her private life remains just that, private. The details of her childhood, relatives, and school life are sparse. Her career, however, is where her passion for bikes truly shines through. It's as if she's written her own story but kept it off the social media grid. In 2013, Zorana took on the role of a producer for Dead in 5 Heartbeats, a film encapsulating the heart, grit, and growling engines of the motorcycle world. Additionally, she co-authored The Lil Bike Crew, a children's book series aimed at igniting the spirit of adventure in young hearts. Zorana's love for motorcycles wasn't just professional, it was personal too. She shared Sonny's passion for hitting the road, feeling the freedom that only 2 wheels can offer. Despite the ups and downs, including Sonny's battle with prostate cancer in 2012 and later liver cancer, Zorana stood by him until his final days in June 2022. Before Zorana, Sonny had ventured into matrimony thrice before. His first partner, Elsie Marr, tragically passed away due to an embolism, setting a somber tone for his romantic journey. Subsequently, Sonny found companionship in Sharon Grulke, whom he wed inside the walls of Folsom Prison in 1973. Their union was unconventional, to say the least. Later, Sonny found love again with Noelle, who not only became part of his life but also embraced the lifestyle of the notorious Hells Angels. But his marriage with Zorana wasn't just a formality. It was an 18-year-long adventure filled with life, love, and a shared passion for motorcycles. Sonny's public displays of affection, especially on social media, showcased their life together, particularly on anniversaries. Even during Sonny's health battles, Zorana remained his steadfast companion, offering unwavering support through thick and thin. In his final moments, Sonny reflected on his long and adventurous life, enriched by the fellowship of an amazing club. His sense of peace and acceptance of life's journey serve as a reminder that life, much like a good ride, is about the journey itself, not just the destination. All right, let's now clear the air about Zorana and Sonny Barger's family tree. You might expect a couple with such a vibrant life to have a bunch of little Bargers running around, right? Well, here's the twist. Zorana and Sonny didn't have any kids. It's true. Sonny's sister, Shirley Rogers, set the record straight. There were no biological children in this chapter of the Barger saga. But wait, there's a bit of a plot twist. A guy named William James Barger pops up making some noise about being Sonny's son. He's been in a bit of trouble here and there, and suddenly he's claiming to be part of the Barger lineage. Shirley wasn't having any of it, though. She's been through this before. It seems claims about hidden Bargers have come out of the woodwork over the years, and Shirley has been the gatekeeper, sorting fact from fiction. And get this, the local sheriff, Mr. Ron Peckman, got involved too. He's backing Shirley up, saying William's been spinning tales, using the Barger name for his own gain, even throwing around threats. The whole situation is a reminder that stories can be just as tangled as the routes on a cross-country bike ride. And in the case of the Barger family, it looks like the only legacy they're passing on is made of memories, not genetics. Sonny Barger, a man whose name rings loud in the ears of those who run their fingers over the throttles of their motorcycles, was much more than just an emblem of biker culture. His journey started on the 8th of October 1938 in Modesto, California, and what a ride it was. Known to the world as Ralph Hubert Sonny Barger, he grew from the young boy left by his mother at the tender age of 4 to a figure that would one day become a legend. Now imagine a 4-year-old navigating a world with an absent mother and an alcoholic father. That was Sonny's early life, a life that taught him the grit he'd carry throughout his years. He and his sister Shirley didn't have the cushioned childhood many dream of, and perhaps it was this rough start that shaped the resilience we've come to associate with the Barger name. By the 1960s, he was not just a founding member, but also the national president of the Hells Angels Motorcycle Club, a name synonymous with freedom, rebellion, and the roar of engines. But Sonny's influence didn't stop at the clubhouse doors. You might recall his rugged presence in the 1967 film Hells Angels on Wheels, Or perhaps remember him as Lenny the Pimp Janowitz in the TV series Sons of Anarchy. These weren't just roles, they were extensions of a life lived unapologetically on the edge. But Sonny's creativity wasn't confined to the roar of motorcycles and the camera's lens. He was also a storyteller, penning books like Hell's Angel, The Life and Times of Sonny Barger, and Hell's Angels Motorcycle Club. The plot thickens when we learn that by the 1980s, the smoke from Sonny's notorious lifestyle caught up with him, leading to a throat cancer diagnosis. The price? His voice, which had to be reinvented after his vocal cords were removed. Then, in 2012, life threw another curveball with a prostate cancer diagnosis, leading to yet another battle, which, true to his nature, he faced it head-on. By June 2022, though, Sonny was up against liver cancer, and in his own words, shared in a poignant Facebook note, he lived a long and good life, filled with adventure and took pride in being part of an amazing club. His passing at 83 marked the end of an era, with the news shared on his own Facebook page, leading many to reflect on the impact of this man who was, in so many ways, larger than life. After traversing the life and times of Zorana and Sonny Barger, we're left with echoes of engines and tales of resilience. Sonny Barger's legacy is not just one of rebellion and defiance, but also one of strength, determination, and the unyielding spirit of the open road. And though the road may have come to an end for Sonny, his legend lives on, inspiring generations to come to embrace their own journey, wherever it may lead. Now, while many are familiar with his tales of rebellion and intrigue, there's still much to uncover about this enigmatic figure. Beyond the well-known stories lie lesser-known facts and details that shed new light on Sonny Barger's life. Let's now take a look at 10 intriguing facts that may surprise you about Sonny Barger. 10 intriguing facts about Sonny Barger. Number 1. Did you know that the influential figurehead of the Hells Angels, born on October 8, 1938, in Modesto, California, was originally registered as Ralph Hubert Barger Jr. at birth? Growing up in post-World War II America, Barger was introduced to motorcycle culture early on and was drawn to the sense of camaraderie and freedom associated with riding. But how did he come to be known as Sonny Barger? His transformation into the notorious figure occurred during his formative years within the Hells Angels. The origin of the nickname Sonny has multiple narratives, but one prevailing explanation suggests it originated from a childhood nickname. As a youngster, Ralph Barger was known among friends and family as Sonny Boy, a moniker that stuck with him through his adolescence. Later, as he became deeply embedded in the Hells Angels and rose through the ranks, the boy was dropped, leaving him simply as Sonny. This evolution of his name reflects his journey from youth to adulthood and from a regular boy to a legendary figure within the motorcycle club. Number 2. When delving into the world of the Hells Angels, one might assume that Sonny Barger, a prominent figure within the club, would have a deep love for Harley-Davidson motorcycles. However surprising as it may seem, Barger's personal preference lies elsewhere. Despite the rule within the Hells Angels that all members must ride a Harley-Davidson, Barger has expressed a fondness for motorcycles made by foreign companies like Honda and BMW. This unexpected revelation challenges the stereotype that links Barger and the Hells Angels exclusively with American-made Harley-Davidsons. Although Barger has been seen riding Harley-Davidsons, his choice to ride Honda and BMW bikes instead showcases his appreciation for the craftsmanship, performance, and reliability offered by these foreign manufacturers. His preference for these brands highlights his practicality and willingness to prioritize functionality and innovation over brand loyalty or perceived image associations. It's important to understand that Barger's choice doesn't diminish his iconic status within the Hells Angels or the broader motorcycle club culture. Instead, it emphasizes his ability to break stereotypes and be his own person while still being an influential figure in the world of motorcycle enthusiasts. Number 3. Now, did you know that during the early 70s, the Hells Angels were involved in an unexpected operation with the police? Yes, you heard that right. Despite their rebellious image, the infamous biker club took a surprising turn in Oakland, California. In those years, Oakland was a hotbed for various fringe groups like the Black Panthers and the Weather Underground, known for their radical beliefs and confrontational tactics. This led to tensions and concerns about potential violence, especially due to the presence of illegal firearms in the community. Contrary to expectations, reports revealed that the Hells Angels were actively acquiring illegal weapons in the area. However, their intentions were not what people assumed. Led by their iconic leader, Sonny Barger, the Hells Angels had a different plan. Barger orchestrated a clandestine operation to prevent these firearms from falling into the hands of radical groups. Instead of keeping the weapons for themselves, they strategically acquired them and then handed them over to the police. This unexpected collaboration demonstrated their willingness to protect the community from harm, even if it meant working with the authorities, a stark contrast to their usual rebellious image, prompting us to question our assumptions about their motives and actions. Number 4. Sonny Barger's early life took a sharp turn when, at the age of 16 in 1955, he made a daring decision to drop out of high school and enlist in the Army. Driven by a thirst for adventure and a desire to find purpose beyond the classroom, Barger sought excitement in military service. However, his plans were thwarted when officials discovered his true age, leading to his dishonorable discharge from the Army. Despite being commended as a skilled young soldier, the revelation of his underage enlistment abruptly ended his military career. This setback marked the beginning of a tumultuous chapter in his life. Number 5. The abrupt end to his military career propelled him in a different direction, one that would eventually see him as a central figure in the formation of the Hells Angels Motorcycle Club. After leaving the Army against his will, Sonny Barger embarked on a path of self-determination and resilience. On April 1, 1957, at the age of 18, he co-founded the Oakland, California chapter of the Hells Angels, marking a pivotal moment in his life and the club's history. This era saw motorcycle clubs rising as symbols of rebellion, challenging societal norms, and forming tight-knit brotherhoods centered around a love for riding. Barger's involvement showcased his natural leadership, charisma, and unwavering dedication to the Hells Angels' ideals. Despite his youth, he played a crucial role in establishing the Oakland chapter, setting the stage for its future success within the club's hierarchy. This move solidified Barger as a trailblazer, shaping the chapter's identity and cementing its place in the Hells Angels' legacy. During a time of growth and expansion for the Hells Angels, Barger's leadership was instrumental. His commitment to the club's principles fostered unity among members, transcending mere association. His early initiation into the inner circle of the Hells Angels speaks volumes about his determination and deep involvement in steering the club's course. Number 6. Now let's delve into one of the most infamous incidents in Sonny Barger's history, the Rolling Stone concert at Altamont Speedway in 1969. The Rolling Stones organized this free concert as the final stop of their American tour. Seeking assistance in maintaining order amid the massive crowd, they reportedly turned to the Grateful Dead's management, who suggested hiring the Hells Angels as security. However, conflicting stories swirl regarding the exact agreement between the Stones' management and the motorcycle club. Instead of paying the Hells Angels a fee for their services, they were compensated with $500 worth of beer. A bizarre arrangement given the Angels' violent reputation. Predictably, chaos erupted. On December 6, 1969, the crowd clashed with the Hells Angels. With too few security measures in place, the once harmonious concert devolved into a crime scene. Tragically, the chaos led to at least 4 fatalities, including the stabbing death of 18-year-old Meredith Hunter. The events at Altamont became a symbol of the darker side of the counterculture movement, highlighting the dangers of unchecked violence and the consequences of inadequate security measures. Number 7. Now, in 1972, Sonny Barger faced a life-altering event, a conviction for narcotics possession. This led to a 4.5-year sentence in Folsom State Prison, known for its tough conditions. Inside, Barger, once a free-spirited leader of the Hells Angels, grappled with the stark realities of prison life. Stripped of his freedoms, he adapted to strict rules and the constant risks inherent in incarceration. Despite his confinement, Barger's reputation transcended the prison walls, earning him respect among fellow inmates. Reflecting on his choices, Barger reevaluated his life during his time in prison. However, legal troubles persisted. In 1979, he faced federal racketeering charges, adding complexity to his story. Convicted for his alleged involvement in organized crime, Barger spent another year behind bars. Number 8. In another twist of fate, Sonny Barger found himself behind bars once again, this time for nearly 4 years. His imprisonment wasn't due to racketeering or illegal possession, but for his involvement in a conspiracy to blow up an Outlaw's motorcycle club clubhouse in Louisville, Kentucky. Rivalry between motorcycle clubs often led to clashes, and this incident highlighted the volatile nature of outlaw biker culture. Despite the severity of the allegations, Barger maintained his leadership within the Hells Angels. His brushes with the law were a recurring theme in his life, but each time, he managed to retain his position of authority within the club, underscoring his resilience and determination. Number 9. Sonny Barger's influence goes beyond the motorcycle club scene, reaching into entertainment and literature. Surprisingly versatile, Barger made his mark as an actor and author. In iconic films like Hell's Angels on Wheels and Hell's Angels 69, he showcased his charisma and presence on screen. His portrayal in Hunter Thompson's Hell's Angels, the strange and terrible saga of the outlaw motorcycle gangs, added depth to the outlaw image. However, it was his role in the TV series Sons of Anarchy that truly spotlighted his authenticity. Drawing from his own experiences, Barger lent credibility to the portrayal of outlaw biker culture. Beyond acting, he penned 5 captivating books, including Hell's Angel, The Life and Times of Sonny Barger, delving into the history and evolution of the Hells Angels. Through his creative pursuits, Barger offered insights into his life and the tumultuous world of motorcycle clubs, leaving an enduring legacy beyond the road. Number 10. Lastly, have you ever wondered about the white patch on Sonny Barger's throat? In 1983, he underwent surgery to remove his larynx due to throat cancer, altering his breathing and communication forever. Despite this, Barger remained unwavering in his dedication to the Hells Angels and motorcycle club culture. His resilience in the face of health challenges highlighted his enduring commitment to the brotherhood he cherished. However, tragedy struck on June 30, 2022, when Sonny Barger passed away at 83. His official Facebook page confirmed his passing, expressing gratitude for a life filled with adventure and emphasizing the importance of family and brotherhood. Barger's final message urged others to remain loyal, free, and honorable. Signing off as Sonny, he acknowledged his beloved wife, Zorana, and his cherished club brothers. May his soul rest in peace, leaving behind a legacy of resilience and camaraderie within the Hells Angels Motorcycle Club.